So welcome everybody to the FinTech and the Future of Finance information session being hosted here at the School of Continuing Studies at McGill. We're very excited to share a little bit about the program and of course give some industry experience and expertise from our panelist today, Mr. Santiago Franco. So again, we welcome you. And just for some housekeeping, we do encourage interaction. So if you have any questions, comments, especially on anything that is being discussed, we encourage you to use the chat function, which you can probably find in the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen. So this will allow me to moderate the chat and bring up any questions with Santiago. And if there is ever an instance where you'd like to verbalize your question, please kindly raise your hand, which can be found in the middle of your panel. There's a raise hand function, and we'll be happy to unmute you so you can ask your question, provide your insights, and your experiences on your own career path and your journey in fintech. So without further ado, if there's ever any questions that we're unable to answer right now because of the time constraints, feel free to email us at ag.scs@mcgill.ca. I'll put this information in the chat so you can always interact with us after this information session. So we'll go over the agenda very quickly. Yes, so this information session will really take place as first an introduction of Mr. Santiago Franco and some insights and some questions about the fintech industry here in Canada, a brief overview of the graduate certificate in financial technology, and a little bit of a segment on the course in which Mr. Franco is teaching here at the School of Continuing Studies. We would like to inform you of a change to our panelists. So unfortunately, the academic program coordinator, Dr. Eduardo Lima, had a family emergency and is unable to attend today's information session. But of course, if there are any specific program questions, feel free to contact myself or the team at SES, and we'll be sure to relate your questions or comments to Dr. Lima at the earliest convenience. To begin, we'd like to start off with the land acknowledgement. So McGill University is on land which has long served as a site of meeting and exchange amongst Indigenous peoples, including the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe nations. We acknowledge and thank the diverse Indigenous peoples whose presence marks the territory on which peoples of the world now gather. So I'd like to hand it off to Mr. Santiago Franco to introduce himself and tell you all about his journey in fintech. As a reminder, he is one of our course lecturers here at the School of Continuing Studies and has developed the CCFA 660 course in the fintech program. So Santiago, I'll hand it off to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Avery, and thank you everybody for joining today. So as Avery mentioned, don't hesitate to just raise your hand and ask your questions in the middle of the presentation. We're here to give the information that's valuable for you. So I've been working for National Bank of Canada for the past 14 years. I've done very different jobs. I started trading back in the early 2010s. Then I was responsible from IT, from analytics, from also project and strategy from a business unit. So business unit is the smallest unit within the bank. And I did that for several years. Then I moved into a team in charge of a data scientists, data engineers, machine learning specialists. So we did what we call advanced analytics in the team. And then since the past 2 years, I've been working on the innovation team at National Bank. The innovation team, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make things differently within the organization, both internally and externally. Internally by changing the ways we do things, by changing the culture, changing the mindset, applying some of the framework of the startup world into the corporate world. And externally, what we try to do is we work with the ecosystem, university incubators, accelerators, startups, and so on, to see how we can help each other to improve the financial services. In parallel to all of this, my work with National Bank of Canada, I've been involved in fintech for the past 7 years. So I am a startup advisor. I also collaborate with several organizations in Quebec. There is a fintech cadence, which is a Montreal-based fintech incubator and accelerator that covers all the fintech startups across Canada. I collaborate with them in several capacities, and I also collaborate with their startups in order to guide the founders for the best approaches to have into the market. I do something similar with an accelerator called the Hold Exchange. And then I also work with the FinTech Research Chair at the UQAM, the University of Quebec in Montreal. It's a research chair that it was created by the AMF, which is the Quebec Securities Regulator, and also Finance Montreal, which is the Montreal, the finance industry group of Montreal. So, and that's my history, both professionally in fintech, and obviously along these lines, I also been working with McGill since last year in order to develop, create, and teach the the program the new program in fintech. So let's dive right into it. The fintech and the future of finance. Is there a question? No? Sorry, I thought that it was someone wanted to intervene.
No, we don't have any questions just yet.
Perfect. So we're going to be covering different topics. We're going to be giving you an overview of the program, and specific, we're going to be talking about the introductory course to the fintech program. But for you, we wanted to cover different questions that we thought they were interesting for you to understand. Again, if you have any other question that you think, oh, I want an answer to this, raise your hand. We'll be here for you. So one very important concept to understand is open banking. And how is open banking going to accelerate the fintech evolution in Canada? Because open banking is not a Canadian concept, this is a global concept. And is basically the concept of individuals sharing their financial information with giving their consent in a secure and standardized way. Why is this important? Because once the individuals share and own their own financial information, then there can be dozens or hundreds of external companies that can start offering you financial services based on the information that you have shared. So you can keep very well your account with your main financial provider. You can keep your relationships with your main financial provider, but by sharing your information from that financial provider with other third parties, those third parties will be able to give you some valuable services that nobody else will be able to give. So that's why the fintech startups have created that niche, and very often they're able to provide their services via open banking products. Now, open banking, it's a very large concept, and it covers different topics, right? Right now in Canada, we have individuals actually sharing their information, their financial information to third parties in a known, very secure and standardized way, because they have to share their banking credentials with other people, with other third party providers. And this is basically cybersecurity rule 101. Don't share your credentials Well, we are actually asking the clients to do it because there is no current secure standards and regulations around it. Well, we're expecting in Canada, hopefully soon, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, it regulations around what the government expects for financial institutions and for the industry as a whole to cover in terms of standards, securities, and regulations for all the players in the industry to agree with a certain rule and framework in order to give more and better services, financial services for Canadians. This secure and strict standardized framework already exists in other jurisdictions. So we have the examples of the United Kingdom, we have the examples of Europe, Australia, even the United States. Recently, they announced that they also want to put in place some regulations around the concept of open banking. Why is it important to have the regulations? Because as I say before, right now, individuals are sharing their banking credentials to third parties because those third parties are giving them valuable services. But by sharing the banking credentials, nobody knows what happened if there is a breach, financial loss, if there is some scams that happen after you sharing your financial information because you voluntarily gave your online access and password to a third party. That's what we call in the fintech world, we call that access the online banking by doing screen scraping. You are giving your credentials to someone, and that someone, third party, is accessing in your name to your bank account, going to the screen of the bank and scraping all the information they want and sending that information to the system that you use for the service. We want to move from screen scraping towards fully regulated and standardized open banking because we believe, the whole industry believes, there is a value for individuals to share the information in order to get more and better financial services. So that's a very interesting concept that we also cover in deep during the course. Do we have any questions around this? So now, when we talk about fintech, fintech is the combination of finance and technology, right? Very simple words, but each of those industries, they are a world in themselves. And when we talk about fintech, we say fintech vertical is the equivalent of a financial sub-industry. So just to give you an example, when we say vertical, we talk about payments. So payments is a sub-industry of the financial industry, and it's considered also a fintech vertical. So when we use the jargon vertical, it's equivalent to sub-industry. We have payments, we have neobanks, we have bank as a service, we have insurance technology, wealth management technology, capital markets technology, property technology, regulatory technology, we have digital assets, and we might have even more if we start going really deep into the sub industries. So we have all these fintech verticals that I mentioned, and all of them are as regulated as the industries they participate in. So finance, the financial industry in almost all the developed world, it's heavily regulated. Very often it's considered to be the top three most regulated industries because, well, we are dealing with the finance, the money, the savings of individuals and companies. So you need actually a proper government framework around it. Given that the financial industry is very regulated, well, the fintech verticals by themselves are very regulated, but each of those verticals that I mentioned before, the level of regulation is different. And that's why there are different revolutions or evolutions that have been done by fintech startups within a certain fintech vertical, depending on how heavily regulated it is. The less regulations, the less barriers to entry, meaning the more competition will be in that fintech vertical. So, what are the fintech verticals that are seeing the most promise in Canada? We talk about payments. So, payments is a very interesting and large sub-industry or vertical. Payments, it's the most used financial service by large by any individual or any organization. Remember, we do payments as an individual almost every day, or maybe several times a week. Different types of payments, right? By credit card, by debit card, paying by cash, doing an interact transfer, and so on and so on, right? So payments has seen a lot of participation from new entrants into the industry, and it's been a very promising fintech vertical. Another fintech vertical that has seen also a lot of promise and a lot of investment and development in the recent years is the wealth management space. So wealth management is an sub-industry of the whole financial industry. And as a fintech vertical, it has seen a big investments, a lot of successes also in the recent years. And maybe you have heard the concept of robo-advisors. Robo-advisors are these online investor services when you can deposit your money into a portfolio without needing to talk to a person. And the portfolio itself is going to do the transactions inside the portfolio in order to keep your desired investment portfolio mandate. I'm just oversimplifying, but that's what a concept of a robo-advisor is within the wealth management vertical. And then we also have we also have the concept of the digital assets. Maybe you have heard what digital assets are. Digital assets, they all were born with the technology of blockchain. So blockchain is a technological development that happened in 2009 after a very famous research paper by someone called Satoshi Nakamoto, with nobody knows who he, she, or them is because it has remained anonymous. And this person or entity, they decided to issue that paper for the creation of a cryptocurrency called Bitcoin. But Bitcoin is one of several thousands of cryptocurrencies that exist. And cryptocurrency itself is one of many use cases that can be done with blockchain. That's why we like talking about this fintech vertical as digital assets. Is not only cryptocurrencies, is all the use cases that can happen in the financial industry using the blockchain technology. So probably you have heard of Bitcoin. That's the largest cryptocurrency that exists right now. Probably you have heard also of Ethereum. That's the second largest cryptocurrency that exists right now. But there are many other use cases that happen in the financial industry. For sure, as of right now, the players in the digital asset space are mostly fintech startups, not as much as the financial institutions, because the financial institutions, they're still learning, analyzing, and mostly consider the risk of getting involved into that space. So I covered those three different fintech verticals: payments, wealth management, and digital assets. Is there any question?
It doesn't look like we have any questions in the chat just yet.
Perfect. So that allows me to touch in the third questions in terms of future career opportunities and what kind of companies will be the most opportunities to work in the financial technology problems. So this question is, the answer is as large as possible because, as I said before, fintech is the combination of finance and technology, right? And within the fintech space, you have both the existing financial institutions, so all the banks in Canada, all the insurance companies in Canada, all the trust and loan companies in Canada, all the pension plans, all the payment companies, they're existing, right? But you also have the fintech startups. The fintech startups are new companies that have launched mostly since 2011, 12. Um, and these companies, they have several advantages over the existing financial institutions. One of the main advantages they have is they don't have any old or legacy systems that they have to deal with. They have to they build their whole technological stack using the newest technology available, and more importantly, they build their services using most probably cloud providers. What does it mean? It means that they don't have to buy servers in order to run their applications. They just rent a IT infrastructure from Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and they build just a nice service in top of that infrastructure that they're renting. Why am I mentioning all of this? Because each of those different points, so we have financial institutions, we have the fintech startups, we have technology, and we have finance. So we have like a quadrant, right? In that quadrant, it is all the fintech verticals that I mentioned before, all the way from payments, wealth management, insurance, all the way to digital assets, all the fintech verticals that I mentioned before. They all have to find their niche and know how to play in that quadrant between the technology, the finance, between the financial institutions and the fintech startups. So I think there is going to be in the near future some interesting developments in trying to tackle a digital assets in a different way other than cryptocurrencies that we have seen. But as I mentioned before, this is not going to be done necessarily by financial institutions. So it's going to be done mostly by fintech startups because financial institutions are still like looking at the risk of getting involved into digital assets. Another industry that is going to be also interesting to see in the next couple of years is going to be the payments industry in Canada in particular, because we expect in the next near future, I don't know if this year or next year, but we expect in the near future the government to come also with regulations around real-time payments. Real-time payments, it might sound like nothing, but it's actually a big deal because nowadays in Canada, we don't have real-time payments. They don't exist. I'm going to tell you, when you pay with your credit card, that's not a real-time payment. That's a company that is doing the risk and knowing how much you have in your account, how much you can spend, but the settling the transaction completely, it takes a couple of days. When you do an Interact transfer, so I'm sending some money to my parents, let's say, I go into my online banking, I say send, it seems to be real time, right? It's not real time. There is also calculations and certain framework that are put in place for the other side to receive the money almost instantaneously. But in the back end, there are delays several days. Real-time payments is whenever a transaction can be actually sent, executed, be settled, and reconciled instantaneously. And services around this are going to be or could have the potential to be a game changer for the financial industry because we have seen that impact in countries like Brazil and India. So that's a very quick overview of where the opportunities can exist in the fintech verticals. I just want to see if there are any questions.
So we don't have any questions, but we would like to hear from you. So I'm going to open a poll just if everyone can jump in and let us know what industry you might currently be working in, just to give us an idea of the audience. And of course, if you can also let us know where you have already studied or what area of study you've already done. So I have opened the poll, so you should be able to answer, and I see some answers coming in. So I'll give it another couple of moments. And if you're having any issues with accessing the polling form, just you can also write your answers in the chat, and it will give us an idea of what your background is and what you might be interested in learning from this graduate certificate in fintech. We have a couple people who are working in tech, one person in finance. So I'll give it another 30 seconds or so, and then we'll continue on with the program overview. All right, so I'll close the poll just so we can save and collect those responses. All right, so we do have quite a diverse crowd. So thank you all very much for letting us know what your area of study has been, and of course, which area you're working on now. So just to give you a program overview of the graduate certificate in financial technology, this is a 15 credit graduate level program. So we have two graduate level finance programs. The first one is on financial analysis, so more of the traditional stream of financial analysis and finance. And this, of course, is our newly revised and open program specific on fintech. So it kind of merges, of course, the traditional concepts of finance, but of course with the new industry norms and movements that Santiago has gone over with respect to technology and how it has changed the world of finance. So it consists of three required courses. So the three required courses are financial modeling and visualization, fintech and the financial system, and along with machine learning and big data in finance. And you can choose from two complementary courses. So there's a total of, I believe, three complementary courses in total, and you have the choice of two to round out the program. And there might be a need for you to complete a prerequisite course, being the financial analysis tools, or there is also data analysis and modeling. So the data analysis and modeling is a course through our technology and innovations domain, which is more focused on the programming and tech aspect of the fintech program. But it always will depend on your background, your educational background, which courses you may have done at a previous institution, balancing also your professional history. So this is generally assessed more on a case by case basis. So it's not necessarily a blanket requirement that everyone will need to do a prerequisite. But of course, in the application process, this is something that is assessed by our admissions office as well as Dr. Lima, who is the academic program coordinator of the finance area. So for anyone who is a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident, the fall 2024 applications period is still open until May 1st. And for anyone who might be an international student, unfortunately, it has closed as of March 1st, sorry, but it is still open until, I believe, July 1st for the winter 2025 semester, which starts in January. This course will be delivered virtually, so with the intention of being an online program. So in theory, you can uh, join in from anywhere in the world as long as you do have a strong connection. And our lecturers and our faculty are experts in this area. So, of course, you will not only be getting the best theory and best practices, but also hands-on industry expertise from our lecturers and faculty members. So before we continue on with our final slide, I just want to check in to see if there are any questions. So once again, feel free to use the chat function, or you can just raise your hand. So we'll give it a couple of minutes if you have any questions about the program overview, application deadline, or anything that Santiago may have spoken about with respect to the fintech industry here in Canada and around the world. All right.
So we're
We'll,
good.
yep. So we'll move on to the next slide.
So what I want to conclude the session today with is what you see on the screen is the whole program. I want just to look a little bit in detail for the on the course, the CCFA 660, which is the FinTech and the Financial System, which is the actual introductory course into the program. And the way we built this course is we have an introductory part. Then in that introduction, we start very high level. We talk about financial institutions in general, what they do, what is their role as a financial intermediary between the financial consumers and the financial markets. We talk also about the different client journeys from the different financial personas. There are mainly three personas in the client journey: the individuals, the businesses, and the large corporations or institutional. And we talk about all the different financial journey of these three personas. Then we start introducing the concept of regulations. As I said before, almost everywhere financial services is in the top three most regulated industries. Then we introduce the technology evolution in the financial system, where we talk about the old days from the 50s all the way to today with cloud services, microservices, and machine learning, and even Gen AI. And then we talk also about entrepreneurship. So, what are the conditions that are given to the fintech startups in order to launch and grow? And then we make an connecting a class on open banking that I mentioned before. So we go deep on the details of open banking, the reasons and the different standards that are going to be applied. And then we enter what we call the fintech verticals. So we, as I mentioned before, we go deep in all of them. From payments, we talk about banking, banking as a service. We talk about lending, insurance, wealth management, all the way to digital assets. And this part, when we talk about all the fintech verticals, we split it almost all of them in a part that is theory, in a part that is history, another part that is a context. How is it work? How does it work right now in the financial institutions? We talk about regulations, and most importantly, we talk about disruption. What are the technologies that are actually allowing that evolution or disruption? And we talk also about the examples of companies actually making that evolution and then that disruption. In the current class that we're teaching right now, we have a guest speaker for every session. Our hope is to have enough interest and bring speakers frequently in the future. So you hear from very specialized people that are like experts in each of the topics for whatever questions you might have in each of those topics. And at the end of the course, what we expect a final project, and that final project we expect a presentation where we ask you to do explain in your own words one fintech startup and explain it from the business model side, what type of evolution or disruption they're doing, and what do you think is going to be the future of that fintech startup? Or the other option we give you for the final project is actually come up with your own fintech startup in any of the verticals that we mentioned and explain us how will you what type of services you will you offer in order to launch and grow your company. So that's very briefly the overview of the course. Let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Santiago. We do have a question from Adrian. If I am working for a bank in trading/financial technology, should I submit my application with description of my experience, and will it be determined if I need to do some prerequisite courses before starting the certificate? So part of that I can answer with respect that it'll have to be assessed case by case by Dr. Lima and the admissions department, because there are also the experience, the grades, the minimum grades required from your undergraduate degree as well that is weighed. But if you have any specific questions or maybe can contextualize based on what you're possibly doing, maybe Santiago will be able to let you know if his course kind of gives an overview or that might help in experience with his course. So Adrian, would you like to elaborate? I've unmuted you if you're able to, if you'd like to speak. Oop. We can't hear you, so just one moment.
Here?
Yes, I can.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Hey, hi. Yeah, so I'm so basically I have a Bachelor of Engineering in Software Engineering. So this is my degree. I think I don't have the GPA high enough to I don't have the 3.0 GPA, for example, but I have 6 years of experience working for big US bank in trading front office position. So definitely I don't have theoretical experience with data analysis, etc. So I was wondering if this is very likely that I would need to complete the financial data and analysis certificate first before starting this fintech certificate, or should I just submit my application with all the details about my experience, background, etc., and then see the result?
Yeah, so that is a very much a specific case that I think Dr. Lima would be better suited to either meet with you beforehand in a call or just kind of going over your application package, because it does weigh the courses, the actual on paper experience, and all of that with the working experience that you do have. So it's hard to say right off the bat, but it could be something that is weighed in depending on your case. It might be recommended that the prerequisite can be done in your case just to give you a pathways, but it's hard to say yes or no
Okay.
based on the information. But there's always a room that we can work with you to make sure that we're positioning you in a position for success.
Okay. Okay. That sounds good to me. Great. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have a question from Hugo. Those that have studied their bachelor degree and master's degree outside of Canada but have taken certifications at McGill, UTO, etc., can apply for this certification. So the short answer would be yes. There are equivalencies that might be needed for those that have studied outside of Canada. So our admissions office has a list of required documents that you might need to show, such as the transcript. If ever your transcript is in another language outside of English and French, it does have to be translated so that there can be that basis of comparison. But it does happen quite often where our student population have undergraduate degrees or graduate level degrees from outside of Canada and apply at the School of Continuing Studies. There just might be specific documents, since it is outside of the Quebec educational system, that we'll have to get directly from those universities. That might take a little bit more time. Yes, not a problem, Hugo. Are there any other questions? Either you can raise your hand or jump in with the chat before we close out for today. All right, so there are no more questions I see in the chat. So thank you all. Oh, what is the link of this certification? So I'll drop that in the chat right now so you can have the program page. So I want to thank everybody for taking the time and sharing with us today in this information session. A big thank you to Santiago for sharing your expertise and your guidance today. I do also want to share that there is going to be an in-person event tomorrow afternoon here in Montreal at the School of Continuing Studies faculty. It'll be at 680 Sherbrooke. You can find the information or even register for the page through the link that I've just shared in the chat. This is all going to be part of this SES virtual fair and the in-person open house. So this is an opportunity for prospective students and people that are interested in our programs to learn about the school, learn about the different programs, and meet and greet the different domains, the academic domains and units. So if ever this wasn't the exact content that you were looking for, we'd be still more than happy to help connect you with the relevant domain if possible. And if you have any questions, I've also dropped our email into the chat, so ag.ses@mcgill.ca, and you can just let us know that you are part of the FinTech virtual session, and we'll definitely do our best to connect you with anyone that can help and guide you through this process. So I hope I answered all questions, but if not, please do feel free to email us at ag.ses@mcgill.ca, and we'll be happy to help. And I wish you all a great afternoon and a wonderful rest of the week.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.